Have you ever wondered how our body maintains the balance of glucose in our bloodstream? It's like a finely tuned orchestra with each instrument playing its part in harmony. At the heart of this symphony, we find a hormone called insulin. Insulin is a small yet powerful protein that serves as a key, unlocking our body's cells so they can take in glucose and use it for energy. It's a hormone that's produced in the pancreas, specifically in the beta cells of the islets of Langerhans. Without insulin, our body's cells would starve, unable to access the energy they need to function. But insulin's role is not just limited to being a gatekeeper. It also plays a crucial part in regulating the amount of glucose in our bloodstream. After we eat, our blood sugar levels rise, and in response, the pancreas releases insulin. This hormone then signals our cells to absorb the excess glucose, effectively lowering our blood glucose levels to a safe range. However, insulin must maintain a delicate balance. Too little insulin, and our cells can't take in enough glucose, leading to high blood sugar or hyperglycemia. On the other hand, too much insulin can cause our cells to absorb too much glucose, leading to low blood sugar or hypoglycemia. Both scenarios can have serious health consequences. Insulin's role in our body extends beyond glucose regulation. It also influences protein and fat metabolism, promotes cell growth and division, and even plays a role in our memory and learning processes. It's clear that insulin is vital for our survival, but it's not just about survival. It's about maintaining our body's balance and ensuring everything runs smoothly. Just like a conductor leading an orchestra, insulin guides our body's cells, helping them work in harmony to create the symphony of life. Insulin, a remarkable hormone, is not as simple as it seems, as we'll discover in the following scenes. So, where does insulin come from and how is it produced in our body? A great question indeed. The journey of insulin starts deep within our body, in the nucleus of beta cells found in the pancreas. Here, the insulin gene gets transcribed into a molecule known as preproinsulin RNA. Consider this as the first draft of an architectural blueprint, which will later be refined into the final design. This preproinsulin mRNA then moves out of the nucleus and into the main cell, where ribosomes attach to it. Ribosomes are the construction workers of the cell, translating the mRNA blueprint into a chain of amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. This chain is what we call preproinsulin. But wait, we're not done yet. Preproinsulin isn't quite insulin. It's an immature form that needs some refining. This refining takes place in the endoplasmic reticulum, a structure within the cell that acts like a protein factory. Here, a segment of the preproinsulin called the signal peptide is removed, transforming the molecule into proinsulin. Proinsulin then gets packed into transport vesicles, which are like delivery trucks for proteins. These vesicles move the proinsulin to the Golgi apparatus, another structure within the cell. Here, the proinsulin undergoes the final step of its transformation. In the Golgi, a piece of the proinsulin called the C-peptide is cleaved off, and what's left is the mature insulin molecule, consisting of two chains of amino acids, the A and B chains, connected by disulfide bonds. This is the final form of insulin, the one that's ready to regulate glucose levels in our bloodstream. The insulin molecules then get packed into secretory vesicles, ready to be released into the bloodstream when needed. This whole process, from the transcription of the insulin gene to the packaging of mature insulin molecules, is the biosynthesis of insulin. Insulin, now ready, takes the center stage in the regulation of our body's glucose levels. And that, my friends, is the fascinating journey of insulin biosynthesis. From a simple gene to a life-saving hormone, all within the microscopic world of our cells. Once produced, how does insulin reach the places where it's needed? This question takes us to the fascinating process of insulin secretion. Insulin is produced in the beta cells of the islets of Langerhans, which are clusters of cells in the pancreas. Once insulin is synthesized, it is stored in secretory granules within these beta cells, waiting for the signal to be released. The primary trigger for insulin secretion is, unsurprisingly, an increase in blood glucose levels. After a meal, as glucose levels rise, it enters the beta cells via glucose transporters. This glucose is then metabolically converted into ATP, the energy currency of the cell. The increase in ATP within the cell leads to the closure of potassium channels in the cell membrane. This causes the cell to depolarize, opening calcium channels and allowing calcium ions to flood in. It's these calcium ions that signal the secretory vesicles to release insulin into the bloodstream. Apart from glucose, other nutrients such as amino acids and fatty acids can also stimulate insulin secretion. Certain hormones like glucagon-like peptide 1 and glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide also play a role in enhancing insulin secretion. However, just as there are triggers, there are also inhibitory factors for insulin release. Somatostatin, a hormone also produced in the pancreas, can inhibit insulin secretion. Similarly, the activation of alpha-2 adrenergic receptors by adrenaline can also suppress insulin release. This is part of the body's response to stress. When you need to fight or flee, your body conserves glucose for the brain and muscles, rather than storing it away. So, it's a finely tuned balance, a dance of hormones and metabolic signals that ensure insulin is secreted just when it's needed and in the right amounts. And remember, this entire process happens within minutes of you eating that delicious meal. With insulin now in the bloodstream, the stage is set for it to carry out its vital function. Stay tuned to find out how insulin works its magic on your body cells. Now that insulin has reached its destination, how does it get to work? Let's delve into the mechanism of action of this fascinating hormone. Insulin's journey begins when it binds to a specific receptor on the cell membrane, known as the insulin receptor. This receptor is a type of protein that spans the cell membrane, and its job is to recognize and bind to insulin. Think of it like a lock, and insulin is the key that fits perfectly into it. When insulin binds to its receptor, it triggers a change in the shape of the receptor. This change is like turning the key in the lock, and it activates the receptor. Now the activated receptor can interact with other proteins inside the cell, setting off a chain reaction of events. This chain reaction involves a series of proteins, each passing on the message like runners in a relay race. The first runner in this relay is a protein called insulin receptor substrate, or IRS. The activated insulin receptor adds a phosphate group to IRS, which essentially hands over the baton to it. Once activated, IRS recruits other proteins, including one called phosphoinositide 3 kinase, or PI3K, then produces a molecule known as PIP3. This molecule acts as a signal, attracting a protein kinase called ACT to the cell membrane. ACT is activated by another protein kinase, PDK1. Once activated, ACT sets off a series of reactions that lead to the movement of glucose transporters to the cell membrane. These transporters are like doors that allow glucose to move from the bloodstream into the cell. So, in essence, insulin's action involves a relay race of proteins leading to the opening of doors for glucose to enter the cell. This process helps lower blood glucose levels and ensures cells have the energy they need to function. Insulin's job doesn't end here. It's a continuous process, ensuring our body's glucose balance. So every time you enjoy a sweet treat, remember the intricate dance of proteins that insulin triggers to keep your body's energy levels in check. But what happens when our body needs to increase blood glucose levels? Enter glucagon, the yin to insulin's yang. When blood glucose levels dip too low, say during periods of fasting or intense exercise, our body calls upon glucagon to save the day. Glucagon, like insulin, is a peptide hormone, produced in the alpha cells of the islets of Langerhans in the pancreas. Its biosynthesis is a multi-step process that starts with the transcription of the glucagon gene into a preproglucagon mRNA. This preproglucagon is then translated into a large peptide precursor, which is ultimately cleaved to yield the active hormone, glucagon. Now onto its secretion. Glucagon is released into the bloodstream in response to low blood glucose levels. It's like the body's own emergency response system. When the body senses glucose levels dropping, it signals for the release of glucagon. The hormone then makes its way to the liver, where it gets ready to perform its primary duty. So how exactly does glucagon work? Well, its mechanism of action is fascinating. After reaching the liver, glucagon binds to its receptors on the liver cells, triggering a cascade of biochemical reactions. This ultimately leads to the breakdown of glycogen, the stored form of glucose, into glucose molecules which are then released into the bloodstream. This glycogenolysis is glucagon's primary mode of action, but that's not all. Glucagon also promotes gluconeogenesis, the production of glucose from non-carbohydrate sources, further increasing blood glucose levels. In essence, glucagon is the counter-regulatory hormone to insulin. While insulin works to decrease blood glucose levels by promoting glucose uptake and storage, glucagon does the opposite. It promotes the release of glucose into the bloodstream, effectively increasing blood glucose levels. And so, the body maintains its delicate balance. Insulin and glucagon, working in tandem, ensure that our blood glucose levels stay within a narrow, healthy range. It's a beautiful dance of hormones, each playing its part to keep us going. Together, insulin and glucagon ensure the delicate balance of glucose, vital for our survival. Let's take a moment to reflect on the journey we've taken today. We've delved into the fascinating world of insulin and glucagon, understanding their biosynthesis, secretion, and mechanisms of action. We've seen how these unsung heroes regulate our blood sugar levels, keeping our bodies in balance. We've also explored the pharmacotherapy of diabetes mellitus, shedding light on the fight against this prevalent disease. Remember, these hormones are the unsung heroes that keep our body functioning. Subscribe for more because you won't find me later.